Steelers are unsure whether or not Ben Roethlisberger is going to be good to go on Sunday night because of his COVID-positive case. And there was some confusion when Jake Glazer kind of blurted that out on Sunday. It's not because he's unvaccinated. It's because even the vaccinated guys aren't coming back as quickly as the protocols in theory would allow. Yeah, you can come back anytime as long as you generate 2 negatives at least 24 hours apart. Nobody's doing that.
Yeah, it's hard
Nobody's
to do
doing
it,
that.
I'm sure, right.
He's not going to do it, most likely, by next Sunday. And even if he does by Sunday night when the Steelers play in Los Angeles, when's it going to happen? Is he going to practice this week? Probably not.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen on Sunday morning and then he's got to get his butt to L.A.? I mean, it's, they need to prepare as if it's going to be Mason Rudolph again.
100%. Yeah, you got it. You got to get Mason Rudolph reps, period. I mean, we watched the game the other day. I know it was bad weather, but yeah, it's not smooth. He doesn't throw the ball that well.
At what point has he had enough reps that we just say, why in the hell is he the backup for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
They're stubborn to me. I mean, here's one of the plays of the game right here. I mean, that's not what I was thinking about. That was the touchdown. Okay, we're showing good Mason Rudolph.
I could have thrown that one.
Okay, we got good and bad, but yes, okay. I mean, it is. You're right. They're stubborn. They drafted him as I think thinking they were going to be it was going to be their heir apparent. They don't have anybody as of right now. They don't. But I think this is the play I was referring to. That's slam dunk touchdown.
Yeesh.
Yeah, yeesh. So they need to give him the reps regardless. But, I mean, you're right, Mike. We don't know when you can expect Ben Roethlisberger. You don't. I think we know that, when you get COVID, vaccinated or not, generally it takes at least 10 days for it to kind of get out of your system. So that's a real thing there. But, just like we talked about with the Chargers, huge game. I mean, all these teams, how they're so lumped together in the AFC right now. I mean, it's unlike any year I can ever remember. I mean, what are we at right now? 12 teams at 500 or better, all in the playoff race still, at the halfway point in the year. That seems odd to me. It definitely does. So them not having Big Ben, hey, the good thing is Chargers defense, they're not good at stopping the run. We know the Steelers want to run the ball with Najee Harris. They have gotten better at that. That's a good thing. But I know we're going to go here in a second. The Steelers got their own issues on the defensive side of the ball, too, that hurts them.
Well, and before we get to that, let's hear from Mike Tomlin, the guy who is responsible for getting Mason Rudolph ready to go if he has to go again. Here's Tomlin on Rudolph's performance in that tie game against the Lions.
Rest assured there will be focusing our energy on Reddy and Mason Rudolph and highlighting what he does and what the group does with him. But to be quite honest with you, it's not a lot of significant differences. Mason plugged into Ben's plan last week, and we didn't necessarily change that. And largely he functioned the way that we needed him to. He gave us a chance to win. If I could be critical of him in any way, I thought he could have been better from a pinpoint accuracy standpoint in some instances to set up run after and putting the ball in an ideal circumstance so a guy in the flat can win that flat confrontation, if you will, and things of that nature.
Look, what else is he going to say? Dwayne Haskins clearly isn't ready, or he'd be the guy.
Right.
Rudolph is there. And for as great of a coach as Tomlin is, and Tomlin's one of the best ever, and Kevin Colbert is one of the most underrated general managers in football.
Yeah.
But one of the things that just kind of gets overlooked, I think Art Rooney keeps his spoon in the stew there in ways that folks don't quite realize, and it may just be that Art Rooney's the one who thinks they should keep Mason Rudolph around.
Maybe.
I don't get it.
Maybe.
I don't understand it. For a team that seems to be so self-aware about who gets it and who doesn't and who should be there and who isn't, the fact that they didn't go out and enhance their number 2 quarterback position after we've seen what Mason Rudolph can do and what he can't do. I mean, you could hear it in Tomlin's voice. The challenge is, we got to figure out a way to use this guy in a way that, fits within his narrow band of strengths and in turn, implicitly, stay the hell away from his weaknesses. And if it did work against Detroit, they would have won that game. This is the worst team in football. Coming into Heinz Field on a day when the elements favored the Steelers, and to not win that game is not excusable. And surely if Ben Roethlisberger had played, Chris, they would have won it easily.
I think so. I do, yes. I think there's 2 things that played against them in that football game. One, Ben Roethlisberger not playing, of course, yes. Mason Rudolph, a lot of errant throws. I think a lot of throws to what Mike Tomlin talks about, where you go, if he throws that accurately, we're probably going to get 15 yards. Instead, the guy had to turn around and almost fell and got tackled, and we got 5 yards. Those things add up during a football game, 100%. I think between that, and then Dan Campbell being involved in the offensive game plan, I'm sure threw some curveballs at the Steelers. You don't know what to kind of exactly prepare for when there's a new guy, at the helm calling plays and how he's going to put them together and what he likes. So I think both of those probably caught them by surprise. But, I think the encouraging thing is kind of what you heard Mike Tomlin say. The game plan doesn't change. It's not going to change. It was ugly offense with Big Ben. We know that. He's a better thrower of the football than Mason Rudolph, period. So he's he's able to take advantage of more in the passing game. But I would think this week, hey, Mason will be a little bit better. The game is in L.A., right? So we got that. You're not going to have to deal with elements. And I think that's where we might see also, again, I go back to the Steelers a few years ago with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph. And I think we're going to see wildcat runs by Najee Harris. I think we'll see speed sweeps and reverses from Deontay Johnson and Ed McLeod, and they'll find other ways to kind of manipulate the offense to where they don't have to depend too much on Mason Rudolph.
But this is the perfect example of why Mike Tomlin is such a good coach, but the Steelers have this bizarre blind spot when it comes to filling out the depth chart behind Ben Roethlisberger. For as good as they are when it comes to finding receivers in any round of the draft, and God help them when it's time to replace Big Ben, because I think back to 2019 now when it was Mason Rudolph who eventually got benched for Duck Hodges. I think the last I saw it, Duck Hodges was starting for a CFL team. I think that was within the past couple of weeks. These are not great options behind Ben Roethlisberger, but they still find a way to be competitive, and they'll be competitive on Sunday night. And we talked about the issues with the Chargers. Now, defensively for the Steelers, you mentioned this. T.J. Watt with a knee and hip injury. He may not be available. They're taking that as a wait-and-see thing, even though the MRIs came back clean. Micah Fitzpatrick unlikely to play because he tested positive for COVID on Monday. And you mentioned the discombobulation that happened against the Lions because of the curveballs that the Steelers were throwing.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.